Hello everybody and welcome to Delve. My name is Nathan.
I am Alex.
And today on the show, Alex, we're going to be talking about things. Do you like things?
I sometimes love things.
Sometimes you love things. Okay.
Sometimes I do.
Okay. Well, hopefully you're going to love the stuff that we're talking about today. First up on the show, we have a Delving Deep, where we are going to be talking about a subject matter we previously talked about on the show, but in a bit of a different context. It's almost like we're going deeper into a subject matter.
Crazy.
Funny how that happens. But previously we had talked about the idea of a good, so-called good company and a bad company. Essentially the parties that are the do-gooders and the do-badders.
Badders. Yes.
Doesn't really work the other way, but anyway,
the do-gooders and then not quite so do-gooders.
What happens when your people are just evil? You've just decided to be evil today. You have chosen
then you
death.
call it the assholes.
You call it the A-team, as we usually like to refer to them. But on this episode, we thought that we would look at the other option if we want to go to the alignment chart, which is what happens when you have a neutral party, i.e. the Switzerland of your adventuring parties.
Well, you just stay out of all the conflicts entirely.
You stay out of all the conflicts entirely, you don't really care all that much about whether something is morally correct or not. You're basically just going about your job. It's another day at the office. You're like going into the cave systems, right? And you're like, oh, there's a kobold invasion? Well, okay, I guess it's like the adventuring equivalent of working an office job at a cubicle. Right? It's like
just going through the motions.
Yeah. And I feel like sometimes we get into that habit anyway when you go to like mission boards and there's just like, here's some hot quests in your area.
I usually just take all the quests and don't read the dialogue, don't care about it. Just I'm like, all right, well, what's the objective? Here we go.
Yeah, I am hard pressed to tell you what all of those were. I just know that they put more objectives on my map.
They just did some things and gave me some rewards.
They did some things, they gave you some rewards, and you will go and do it again. And the consequences do not really matter. I mean, for all I know, they could have just said that I needed to go and stop the scion of righteousness that is going to protect the world from the evil one. And I'd be like, yeah, but I got the quest, so I guess
well, when you're neutral, does it really matter what side you're rooting for?
But the point is that you're not really rooting for anyone, are you?
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't want to root for anyone.
The great thing about being neutral is you can work for both sides.
You know what? You're right. It's a balancing act. Perfectly balanced as all things should be. Yeah.
All things should be.
Yeah.
Indeed.
There's someone smart said that once. But when you're playing an RPG, or if you're running an RPG, Alex, what is the likelihood that your party is going to kind of not necessarily be in the good or the bad camp? Like,
well, I mean, generally, I think they'll lean more towards the good-er side of things.
The gooder. Not the goodest, but the gooder side.
Like, I don't think generally the party outright tries to do things that are seen as, like, bad or evil.
Sure.
But it's not like they necessarily go out of their way to be super altruistic, lawful, stupid paladins.
Don't call paladins stupid.
I did once have a player play an incredibly Mary Sue lawful stupid paladin.
Oh, fun. Personally, I did think about playing paladins or clerics at some point, but I didn't really want to do the aspect where they were, just like, I'm an agent of righteousness and I'm going to go off and do. I found that to be very, very. If I was a cleric, I'd probably actually want to be more like a necromancer, raise the dead kind of cleric.
Yeah, I had that one player who played a very lawful, stupid paladin, and they're like, all right, we're in town. It's like, yes, is there anything you guys want to do? He's like, is there anyone in need of help?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do you mean? It's like, are there any, like, homeless people or people who need healing or, like, to be taken care of? I'm like, no, you're in a major city that is fairly wealthy and takes care of their people. It's like, there's not really a lot of homelessness or anything in the city.
Right.
Like, is there something, like, interesting you'd like to do? It's like, no. I'm looking for charity stuff to do. I was like, no, this is Mary Sue stuff. This is just, I'm great. No, it's like, do something interesting. Your character can be interesting and
sure,
not just dumb.
I think it's one of those things where a lot of people might have been turned off of playing characters like that just because it feels so simplistic in like how the character is supposed to be played. And I feel like that's sad because paladins don't really have to do that.
Well, no, and that's the biggest reason for me where if someone goes, I want to be a paladin, I'm like, cool, your alignment doesn't matter, just stick to pick a god, stick to their dogma.
Yeah.
Clerics are very similar. It's like stick to the dogma of your deity and you're going to be in your god's favor.
Right.
Clerics don't generally have to stick to it as hard. They're priests, they're not holy warriors.
Right.
But they still stick to that kind of
sure
with the role. But the paladins, it's like, oh yeah, my oath is to my god. My oath is the whole spiel. So you got to be in alignment with your deity.
Sure thing. A similar fashion, you have a problem with, like, warlocks. I think a lot of people will take characters like that and say that, well, I guess I'm just evil now. And again, no, not really.
No, the restrictions on warlock are chaotic or evil.
Right.
And like, I played a chaotic good warlock.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like, this is fine.
Yeah,
he's a noble, he's good. And then I made was going to, just as long as it was fine with my DM, like make him a paladin multi-class.
Right, yeah. I had a concept of actually doing that too that I've been kicking around that was actually a paladin warlock. And the whole thing that I had for him was that he kind of starts out as the paladin do-gooder character that's supposed to come, like, I think I was going to make him a Goliath, but the idea that he's kind of coming down from the mountains, he's supposed to be, like, true to his word, and he's played by the rules his whole life, and then he gets a sword, and the sword starts speaking to him, and keeps telling him things that he doesn't really want to admit to, but starts saying, yes, but you understand. You kind of want this, even though you don't understand, even though you don't know that. And so the idea of being torn between two different sides, and then having to make a lot of concessions between those two, between a patron and a god that are both asking things of you, that are in conflict. I thought that was a good, fun idea.
Could be, definitely interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Although, here's my question, Nathan. If you're running a neutral party, or if you are a neutral party, could you do it in the way that you are all good characters doing evil things? Does that balance out and make it neutral?
That's a good question.
Or does it just make you break character fairly badly?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of hard if you, I mean, it would be kind of fun, actually, if you had a bunch of characters that were just like just out of seminary or something. It's like a whole bunch of, a fun little crew of, the holy, like, Temple of Helm or whatever. They're good people. They've got the cool kids Bible or whatever they're reading. And then all of a sudden they're kind of go, okay, and your quest today is kill God. Like, your quest today is... And they're like, what? I gotta go kill God. Well, we've got balance. We've got to balance out the world. And,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people that have faith in this particular God, and we just don't think that that's going to really work for what's going on out there. I would actually say that if you're really trying to do neutral, if you're actually trying to go for a neutral party, none of the characters have a particular moral conviction one way or another.
Probably.
Yeah, that kind of defeats
It's the A team for another way is that they're the apathetic party.
Oh.
Oh, please help me. My husband's been kidnapped. Eh.
Yeah, all right.
Is there money in it?
Yeah.
Yes. Their motivations are purely greed.
Yeah, I usually assume that if you're going to have a neutral party, they're probably not going to have very heavy moral conviction one way or another.
Oh, probably not.
No, because I think that's kind of going to defeat the purpose. Now, that's assuming that you're actually going out on the outset thinking that you're going to have a party that is not really in it for anything except maybe themselves or just the job that they have been tasked with.
Here's the question. If you have a party that is morally gray,
yeah,
doesn't really care one way or another, as a games master, would you make the quests try to actually get them to feel a thing? Or would you lean into that and give them the most ridiculously, swayed quests one way or another?
I think that it would actually be more interesting to do the latter, wouldn't it? Like, what other opportunity are you going to have to really just lean into the neutrality of it all? And just or even better, if it was something I was doing, literally just have no stake in it one way or the other of the characters succeeding or failing anyway. So just let them kind of go along whatever this path is. And then
I need you to go light our enemy town on fire.
Yes.
And then you take a contract from the enemy town to do the same thing to the first. Then you have 2 towns in flames and you're walking away with the explosion behind you.
Yeah. And then you start wondering, oh no, who's going to pay us? No one. No one's going to pay you because they're all
at that point, you just steal everything and call it good.
Yeah. Yeah. But then you realize that it was actually all in the service of a fire freak or something like that. Who was just like, oh, actually now my people can thrive. You have made a burning town for us to live in. Yeah, exactly. Perfect. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think that a neutral party, so to speak, has to be bland. It doesn't have to be basically the color gray of parties. I think it just means that you aren't going to be going down the line saying, well, we have to do a morally just thing to try and save the world, or, oh, we're going to take over the world because we need to make sure everybody's under our thrall. You're more or less just saying that we're going to go and take on quests because adventuring is our job, and we need to do our job, and we'd like to be good at our job.
Right. It's all about getting things done at that point.
Exactly. A lot of times you'll just end up doing your job, even if you're like, I don't know, exactly what the purpose is. Jobs that I've even had, when they would ask you to do stuff, it wasn't really because this is the good thing to do or this is the bad thing to do. It's no, we just need to get the boxes off the truck now.
It's the good thing to do. Don't make that truck driver wait.
Don't make the truck driver wait. I guess that's sort of the good thing. But it's the utilitarian campaign of just doing the thing that needs to be done so that you can...
The party just buys a couple of donkeys.
Sure.
And a cart. And they're just moving goods. They are the D&D freight company.
They are the D&D freight company. So basically, we've made the trading simulator of RPGs.
Yeah, you just don't mess with the trading part.
Sure.
You just have them fight off bandits the entire time.
Yeah. Oh, you know what we do? It's just the Oregon Trail as an RPG.
Ah, yes, you've died of scurvy.
You've died of scurvy. Because if you think about it, Oregon Trail's probably a good analog for this. All you're really trying to do is just get across the country in your wagon. There's really no morally good or bad thing that's going on there. Your party members could die. You have to shoot a lot of squirrels. There's a lot of stuff going on. Good, bad. It's just, you have an objective. I need to get from here to here. That's it.
I've got an objective as well. Oregon Trail, the TTRPG D&D experience.
Perfect. I like that. The irony is, as we talked about on the last episode, that would also probably do really, really well.
Probably.
Coming to Kickstarter. Out of curiosity, if you're running a campaign, you are running a campaign, is your objective to try and lead people down a certain path, so to speak?
Currently, no.
No?
No. Oh, currently no. I'm teaching. We're teaching 2 new players how to play, and less focused on the aspect of alignment
Sure.
than anything, because it's not super important. So no.
Yeah.
And I generally don't try to push players on one path or another unless there's a narrative reason. So.
Fair enough. Yeah. Recently, like, Wizards of the Coast have also just kind of moved away from the alignment system altogether, for probably similar reasons. That it seemed to be very limiting for characters. So, hey, who knows? If you're out there and you're listening to this, maybe you should try actually playing a neutral campaign. Like, actually intend to play a neutral campaign. See how that goes. Because,
feel a bit apathetic about playing it, and then see how it goes.
Right. You get really deep into the mechanics, you don't care that much about the storytelling, but for D&D, that means if you're into the mechanics, chances are you're doing a lot of combat, so I don't know if that's necessarily good or bad, but neutral nonetheless. I feel something about that. So, on today's Delving Deeper, we're talking about the secret lives of NPCs. So, Alex, recently I had watched a movie called Free Guy. I don't know if you've ever seen that one.
Never heard of it.
You've never heard of it. Well, it's Ryan Reynolds.
Okay.
So,
I think I have heard of it.
yeah. So, the whole concept was that Ryan Reynolds is basically an NPC in a video game and doesn't realize it. Until one day, this woman comes along, Jodie Comer's character, who's actually a player in the real world, and he's fascinated with these, what they call the sunglass people, who are the player characters that come in and just start destroying everything and, run into the banks to try and stop the bank robbers, and things are crashing around them, and this is just like a day for them. This is just their normal day is just like, oh yeah, this is the time where we get robbed, and they just get down on the ground and have conversations while the bank robbery's going on, and he has stock lines that he says, and he just never thinks about it. And then this one day, one player comes in, and it makes him start thinking about, like, well, why do I always do these things? And why is it that I just, like, get slammed by a car, and then the next day I wake up like nothing's ever happened? And why do I have to wear the same shirt every day? He goes to the coffee house, and they automatically give him what he always orders, which is like a medium rose, 2 creams, 2 sugar, or something like that. And he's like, you know what? Today I think I want a macchiato. And they're like, a what? I'd like to try a macchiato. And they're like, I don't know how to make that. and so there's this whole thing that, like, that they're essentially programmed, don't realize that they're in a game. But the storyline is kind of him determining that, wait a second, I don't want to follow these rules, and I think that there's more to this world than that. And breaking out of
He's become aware. He's become aware.
Oh no, we built an AI, and so it's the process of going through that. It's really fun, and if people watch it, the fun references they do at the end are amazing. But they have a lot of fun things. They have cameos from a lot of the big streamers. Jacksepticeye is even mixing appearance. Pokemon and Ninja show up at some point. They have a lot of interesting people come on. A lot of fun stuff. But it got me to thinking about the general idea of how NPCs, especially when we're talking about video games, are kind of just those people on the street that you end up running over with your car when you're not thinking about it. And one of the themes about the movie was kind of like making people think a little bit more critically about what the NPCs do and who they are. And so I started to think, hey, what does happen with the NPCs in like the off times? How much do we actually think about like the lives of NPCs that are usually just populating your world when you build it? So, the general question I have for you, Alex, is when you have built games in the past, and you make a town, or a city, or your country of Alexopolis, or whatever you have,
Alexopolis, great.
Alexopolis is your magical place. How much detail do you really think about when it comes to the lives of the citizenry, the people that are in it?
Well, for me in the past and continuing to be present, I don't.
You don't?
Generally, you don't add more details to things you don't need.
Okay.
On the flip side is if you want to flesh out like a town, obviously you should include some of these things.
Mm-hmm.
You should include NPCs doing their day-to-day bustle or reacting to events going on and that sort of thing. Even if they don't necessarily have names until needed, or dialogue that is fleshed out.
Oh, sure.
For instance, it would be ideal if you wanted to flesh that town out to have them, like, you know, a description of, oh, as you enter town, you see the various NPCs, the various townsfolk doing their daily chores and going about trade and all these things.
Mm-hmm. Especially if your characters want to interact with anybody. Because I started to think it would be kind of interesting if your players just like picked somebody at random off the street and was like, hey, can you tell me a little bit about your life and what you think about this place? And what
really
you think
aiming for that improv section of D&D, huh?
Yeah, exactly. You're getting the man on the street opinion from the people
There's
that are in town.
A great part in, I think, the Gamers 2 video they did, which was this NPC, and it's what is your name? And he's like, oh shit, what is his name? And he goes, Willem.
Yeah. I think I saw an XP to level 3 video too, where it was like taking when you come up with NPC names that are just like regular names or something. And
well, yeah, why would they have extravagant names?
Exactly. But then like, oh, this person that you just ran across, what are they? And he's like, Bob the Necromancer? Yeah. Bob.
Necromancer, you say. I mean, there are definitely NPC generators out there that will give you like their name, class, race, if they have a class, or their profession or background, and like random life things that are just really, really handy if you're on the fly needing an NPC.
In the story of Free Guy, Ryan Reynolds' character, who is called just
Spoilers,
Guy.
by the way.
Not really, because I'm just telling you the overview. I'm not going to tell you what happens.
Okay.
But his name is Guy, and they live in a place called Free City. That's why it's called Free Guy. But he's Guy, and he works at a bank, and he has this catchphrase, "Don't have a good day, have a great day." And he always stamps all of the documents, and it just says "today" on it. And he has Guy written on his thing. And then when he becomes, like, a popular character because, like, he breaks his programming and he starts realizing, oh, actually, I don't like all of this violence in town. I'm just going to go around and stop people from committing all of these acts of violence and basically just start taking guns and stuff away from people. And just, he becomes the legend known as Blue Shirt Guy, because he is the NPC basic character with a blue shirt on, and that's all he is. He can't change clothes. And so he becomes this legend known as Blue Shirt Guy. And I keep thinking to myself that it would be very interesting if you actually tried to implement something like that in a game, where you just had this random person who then gets elevated to a status of being like the local celebrity or hero, by virtue of just going around and doing generally helpful things for the society that they're in.
It's the folk hero.
It's the folk hero, exactly. You're the Johnny Appleseed of this.
If you attack this town, Blue Shirt Guy will come and beat you up.
Yeah.
By taking all of your things.
It will take all of your things. It will take all of your weapons away from you, and you have to deal with that. The general idea, I think, was that, like, when I play games, most of the time, I don't think much about what all of these characters are doing. But sometimes, I remember when I was playing Oblivion, when they started with what they refer to as the Radiant AI system. And it was supposed to provide the NPCs with actually, like, a daily schedule, and where they would go places and they would do things, and they would...
Yeah.
They
kept it in Skyrim too, pretty much.
Yeah. It really just... They originated it when it got to the Oblivion part of Elder Scrolls. And I did, at one point, just kind of like go, I wonder what that's like. And I just followed, like, one of the NPCs around for, like, a day.
Oh, yeah.
To see what they do and how that works. And, you kind of get a good idea of the day in, day out of the ones and zeros that are behind the
right,
NPCs.
and I think that's fairly easy to do in a video game as far as, like, it's scripted and it takes place on timestamps, because you have a day-night cycle, so it just goes with that. Whereas tabletop, if you were to try and implement that, it would be more tedious.
Yeah. Now, what they were trying to do, and I did not test this to figure out if it was real, is they had the idea with the Radiant AI system that if you, like, stopped the character, or the character got delayed in some way, it, like, throws off their day, and so they're, like, late to get to places. And I don't think that really worked exactly that way.
Well, what you do is you hold a character in dialogue for hours, and then you wait to see if they try to go to a place that's closed later.
Yeah. That would be amazing, though. I would love to see that kind of detail where, like, you just waylay this random person on the street, and then you just watch as they, like, oh, I needed to get to the bank at a certain time, and they go to the bank, and the bank's closed, and they're, like, trying to open the door, like, oh, I can't believe this. I can't cash my check.
That's where their programming glitches out.
Their programming glitches out, and before you know it, you have Blue Shirt Guy.
Yeah.
And what are you going to do now?
Well, he can't be a Red Shirt Guy.
No, I think as a general rule of thumb, all of your NPCs are red shirts. Most of them kind of are. At least not with the named NPCs.
In this case, he should have had a red shirt and changed to a blue shirt.
That would be amazing. That would be
been a great, just be subtle.
Yeah, exactly. I like the concept. I would imagine, though, that there are certain levels when it comes to NPC depth as well. Like, you're going to have some that are named characters that players are supposed to interact with. and then there are ones that realistically you kind of figure are just populating your world as just other bodies that are in it.
Right, and then there's like generic City Guard 1.
Yeah, exactly. It's like when they scroll through the cast and you get toward the end, it's like Security Guard 1, Security Guard 2, Lady on the Street. And you're like, oh, okay, here we are. Once you get down there. And you can imagine that they must have very fascinating backstories, but, you know, to be completely honest, even in movies and television they do this. There are just lots of people that are in the background. And when you have giant action set pieces, there's a lot of people that are just running around screaming because the cars are coming on fire and they're barreling down the streets. And what are you going to do about it? We don't get into the backstories of those people very much. Maybe because information overload.
And because unnecessary most of the time.
Yeah. You can imagine that, like, if they were going to do a giant war epic, and they were going to get to this big battle, and everybody was going to fight each other, trying to go through some individual character arcs with every single one of the soldiers before you did that would be basically 3 movies in itself.
Just 3?
3 movies to do an overview.
Oh, sure.
You'd
Been so many soldiers.
Yeah. You'd probably have to get at least, like, you know, a good movie for, or maybe just like an episodic piece for each character to try and get a feel for them. And then...
Sounds like a Netflix original miniseries. Or actually, in this case, a long series.
Yeah. I mean, in some...
Actually, Nathan, that'd be fantastic, is have like a movie.
Yeah.
But then you have a mini-series that takes the events from the movie and goes through all the different characters' points of view on it.
Oh, so basically you just have like 3 months of backstory that you go into as a mini-series?
It'd be like Cloverfield, how it's found footage.
Got it.
Except 17 different Cloverfield movies of the same event from different people.
Oh boy. Yeah. That's a lot. That's a lot.
Something like that. That'd be really cool, though.
See, I think that was kind of what they were trying to do with things like Game of Thrones, where there's just a lot of like the cast of characters is just very expansive. But even in that, when you get to a straight up battle between 2 armies, or you get into King's Landing or any of those places, you really can't quite equate to a storyline everybody that's involved in that, all the people that are in that world at that time, because if you were doing that, you're telling a story that is outside the realm of specific characters. It's hard to do a story that incorporates literally everybody that's involved in it unless you have a very insular one. If you're doing like The Lighthouse, where there's 2 characters and that's it. And you can dig into both of those characters without anybody in the background. Any populated area, you're not going to really be able to do that. But it did get me to kind of wondering about the general idea of NPCs and how expendable they really should be, and if I should care more if, like, they're getting eaten by zombies when I get to town. Or if I just walk away because I'm part of the neutral party and I just came to do my job. and it doesn't really matter to me. I just came to do my job. I came to... It's Army of the Dead. I just went into Vegas so that I could rob the casino, and I didn't care if anybody died from the zombies that were there. But, do you ever wonder... Just to kind of wrap this one up, do you ever think about like an NPC that was in your game that didn't really get as fleshed out as you might have wanted to had you been playing longer?
Well, maybe. I don't really have a offhand like thought of that.
Sure. I can tell you that when I was playing Rembrandt, we actually did have an NPC that ended up following us for a while, and had a whole arc, actually. And I believe it was a kobold that we kind of ran across that we had held captive at some point to interrogate, and then ended up was like, no, I can't go back to my war chief or whatever because I've been captured now. I'm pretty much screwed. So you know what? I'll follow you guys. I'll work with you. That's fine. And Dom was able to make him kind of this foul-mouthed little dude that was just kind of didn't understand social graces or anything like that, and pretty much just wanted to beat things up. Ultimately, though, when we ended up in one of the larger battles in the game, where we had to deal with a giant orc party, actually, that place where I got those Gith sabers.
Ah, yes, those blades.
Yeah. At one point, our friend got a little skewered by that Gith Yankee, and I was not able to save our little friend. And
yeah, no, those swords are brutal.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that was not a party that had a lot of healers, so to speak.
I mean, the long and short of it is, I don't think traditional healing will work with a Githyanki sword.
That is fair. That is fair.
Since they kind of soul sever you.
Oh. That's good.
Yeah, they cut your bond to the astral plane.
Oh, fun.
So essentially they kill you by killing your soul.
Oh. So I should probably have utilized those better.
Yeah, except they will also, I think we went over this before. Those swords are coveted by them. Any non-Githyanki member who has one will be hunted down by the Gith and the Githyanki, or the Githzerai. Very, very much so to the ends of the earth.
Cool.
Yeah.
I can rack up a lot of experience, though, by killing them.
I mean, maybe. They do have fiends and demons that work with them, so good luck.
Yeah, but I was a giant turtle monk, so... So there's that. But anyway, we did lose our little friend in that battle, and like I was saying, is like we didn't really have people that had a lot in the way of healing ability, so even though a few of us were able to kind of like get there, it was like far away anyway, and we really didn't have health potions.
Yeah.
It was actually around that time I started to realize that, oh, I have an herbalist kit and I haven't actually been using it to make healing potions. Yeah.
We went over that in the toolkits.
In toolkits, yes, I think we did on one previous episode. But I found that was a really interesting way of presenting information. In the 1879 campaign that we did, we ended up with some NPCs at a dinner party that we met that our characters would have very much liked to have as traveling companions later on, had we gotten to the part where we were going on our next adventure. And I was able to make some of the people working at my workshop I made. I gave them names and a little bit of storyline behind them. And I think that's a lot of fun. It helps flesh out your world a little better. And it doesn't necessarily, if it's just for flavor, you don't really even need to have the person who's running the game, if they're comfortable with it. The players can kind of expand upon people that are in the world too, if they know them or they're interacting with them on a regular basis. Alex got really close to the monitor there for a minute, and I started...
Don't worry about it.
Okay.
There's no point mentioning that. I'm just trying to autofocus the camera.
I'm gonna try to unfocus my camera.
Great. Perfect. I'm gonna be focused. You're gonna be just a smudged.
That's perfect. That's perfect. That's great. And hey, if So we'll pass the question on to you. What NPCs have you had in your games that you really liked? Which ones were kind of like the general, like, NPC on the street that ended up getting more screen time than you originally planned? We'd like to know about those characters. The unexpected characters in your game that were just background to begin with. Up next on the show, we have a Delving Deepest, and it feels like we've done this before, but I don't really remember where. Alex, can you help me out?
Nope.
Okay. I thought we did Delving Deepest.
We did something. I don't. It's been here, done that. After so many shows, it all blurs together, right? Right?
I guess so.
Maybe it's just a collective delusion.
Oh, do they have a word for that?
Oh, they have a term, I think.
Oh.
On today's Delving Deepest, we actually want to discuss the Mandela effect.
Oh, the Howie Mandela effect?
Howie Mandela effect, the Nelson Mandela effect, which
That too.
actually, for those of you who may not be aware of what the Mandela effect is, Google tells me that the Mandela effect occurs when a person believes that their distorted memories are, in fact, accurate recollections. They can clearly remember events that happened differently or events that never occurred at all. The bottom line is that the Mandela effect does not involve lying or deception.
Right. It is mostly that your brain has played a trick on you.
It is as kind of understood, it's a collective mass misremembering.
Yeah. Things that never happened.
As it tends to affect large groups of people remembering things differently than they originally were, or in conspiracy theories, alternate realities where things have changed.
Was it one of the ones I kind of remember this happening with is there were a lot of people that were remembering a movie called Kazam with Sinbad in it.
Yeah, which doesn't exist.
Never happened. Never happened at all.
I think they're thinking of the movie Shazam.
That had the Shaquille O'Neal, if I remember correctly.
I think so, yeah. As a genie.
Right.
But not Sinbad.
But later on, like in the 90s, I guess in the 2000s, they did like a College Humor or something thing where Sinbad actually was like doing the making of Kazam or something.
Back when College Humor was
around,
relevant.
It's still around.
I have a couple just questions for you and for our audience before we get into like why we're talking about this. These are from this article I found, some 30 examples of Mandela effects.
Oh, okay.
Nathan.
Yeah.
Do you remember the Monopoly guy?
I mean, I remember Mr. Moneybags.
Yeah, do you remember what he looks like?
Yeah, he has that little, top hat?
Okay.
He have a top hat, and he has the little kind of like tuxedo thing going on for him. He has a money bag.
Yep, always got the money bag.
Always got the money bag, yeah. I'm going to guess that
Here's a question for you, though.
Yeah.
What are you going to say?
No, I'm going to guess that you're going to tell me that I'm wrong.
Well, I have a question for you. Do you remember Mr. Moneybags? I think he has a real name, but I don't remember it. Do you remember him ever having a monocle or not having a monocle?
I don't think he had a monocle. I don't remember him having one.
Oh, that's interesting.
Okay.
He actually does not have a monocle, but a collective remembrance of this is him with a monocle.
Right.
A lot of people believe that he had one at some point in time.
Yeah. I wonder if that has something to do with like a lot of people cosplaying, and for some reason they got the monocles, like...
I think in that case it's association with the rich.
Yeah.
Maybe like Scrooge McDuck type thing.
Yeah.
I think Scrooge has a monocle. The brand, Fruit of the Loom.
Oh, okay.
Do you know the logo for that?
it has the various fruits in it, and I believe that it's... No, it's not in, like, a Horn of Plenty. Is it? I know that there's, like, grapes, and there's the apples, and I want to say there's a banana, but...
No,
then
there's no banana.
I didn't
But
think
the
there was...
cornucopia, yes or
Yeah.
no? Do you think it has one? Which do you remember?
You know what? I don't think it did.
It did.
I don't think it did.
It is remembered with it
Yeah.
by some people.
I mean, the fact that I just said that I thought it might have...
Exactly.
Yeah.
Another popular one is Pikachu.
Mhm.
Pikachu's tail, specifically. This one's harder to probably picture. Some people believe that the end of his tail has a black nub, like the end of it is black,
Oh, yeah.
which is not true. Although there is a difference between male and female Pikachu's tail end being slightly different, but
Oh.
it's not black.
The Pikachu tail, isn't it that it has, like, some black striping on it?
Yeah, it doesn't have any black striping on his
Oh.
tail.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a whole other Mandela effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Apparently Shaggy, people believe that Shaggy from the cartoon Scooby-Doo, some people believe he has an Adam's apple,
No.
which he doesn't in the cartoons.
No.
I assume that might be a idea from live action Shaggy, perhaps, just kind of being, oh yeah, it's Matt Lillard and it's got an Adam's apple.
Very, very prominent one, yeah.
Yeah. Here's one. Kit Kat.
Kit Kat, the chocolate bar Kit Kat?
Yeah, the crisp wafers.
The
as
crisp,
it were.
crisp wafers.
Do you remember their logo having a hyphen or not having a hyphen?
Good question.
Yeah,
I don't think it does.
it does not. You're
Okay.
you're doing great on these so far.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Some people also believe it does. It does not have a hyphen.
Okay.
The brand Febreze.
Heard of it.
How do you spell it?
Febreze. There's only the one E, isn't there? Eze.
There is only one E.
Yeah.
Um,
I know
people
what it
believe
was. Though. Yeah.
It's because breeze has two E's typically. So
Yeah.
people believe that.
Yeah.
Let's see. How about, here's a fun one. What color is C-3PO?
Like gold, brass. I think it's gold, but
Yeah, he's gold brass. His entire body?
yes. No.
No. His one of his legs is silver. From the knee down.
Oh, okay. Because like in the storyline, right? He was in parts, so
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And it's always everything. It's easier to forget that one.
right.
Another popular one from Star Wars is misremembering the line, Luke, I am your father,
Yeah, that didn't actually happen.
which doesn't exist. It's no, I am your father.
Right. Right.
The monkey Curious George, I'm just gonna tell you straight up. People apparently believe he had a tail at one point. He does not.
Doesn't have a tail. No.
He does not have a tail.
But monkeys have tails, so you would assume.
Right. Well, not all monkeys, I guess, have tail. I think he's like a chimpanzee.
Oh
Those are-
yeah. Yeah.
Do you remember the Raisin Bran sun?
The Raisin Bran sun. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Does it have sunglasses?
I don't know if it does, but I like remember that the California Raisins did. So it kind of makes me start to think like maybe people associated the sun with the
raisins.
with the raisins,
Or
and
they
that
thought
it
he
had
was a real
sunglasses.
cool guy.
Yeah, something like that. Or it was the cool spot.
He does not
Okay.
have sunglasses.
Okay.
Looney Tunes. Here's another great one. Do you know the spelling
Of
of that one?
yeah, it's Looney, Loon EY, and then tunes is TUNES.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's merry melodies, and it used to be with the music, so it wasn't
Right.
tunes as in cartoons. It was tunes as in music.
Yeah.
Absolutely correct. People believe it the other way around, of course, because people are our brains are weird things. Here's another great one: Fruit Loops.
Yeah. Fruit Loops. Mm-hmm.
How do you spell the word fruit in Fruit Loops, Nathan?
I mean, I guess I know I'm gonna be wrong, but I thought that it was just spelled fruit. Fruit.
Nope, it's FROOT. Fruit.
Oh.
Which explains why there's only one flavor.
Yes.
And it's cherry.
Yes. There's only one flavor, and the flavor is fruit with 2 O's.
Yeah, the flavor of Fruit Loops is cherry, in case anyone's ever wondering. But those are some just very, very popular things that are ideas from the Mandela effect, and you remembered most of those accurately.
Perfect.
Which is great. It means either you're aware of them being things. One of the ones that is super popular in that is the Berenstain Bears or the Berenstain Bears.
Oh yeah.
Because people are like, what? No, it was totally this other thing. The reason I want to talk about this is because the idea of false memories and misremembering things is really interesting when you bring it into the concept of tabletop.
Sure.
Because your players and your characters, I should say, have a lot of past typically in your games that you don't always flesh out completely. And your party could have been together for years, for instance.
Sure.
But let's say if you wanted to do something where the party remembers something differently than the rest of the world.
Right.
You could do that.
Yeah.
It could be a huge plot point.
Oh yeah. That's also the kind of thing where I could see using, if somebody had a really good insight or perception, they might be able to suss out something that is actually different than the textually, the text actually say.
Yeah, and I was discussing this idea last night with Crave, and it was the idea that to realize something is off, you would make your perception to notice it. So in 5e, for instance, you'd go, all right, roll for perception, you pass. You can tell something is slightly off, but you're not quite sure what it is. And then you could make your wisdom roll to actually suss out what is different, for instance.
Right.
Because you have to first notice that there's something wrong to realize that you should look into it a bit harder. So something like that. Maybe, for instance, you change subtle things. What if the one town that you're using as a hub, they go to an inn, the same inn every time they come back to town, and then after so many times of making sure you say the name, oh, it's the Lion's Head, every time you go back to the Lion's Head Inn, and then one time you change it up on them, you say, you head back to the Lion's Mane.
Oh, yeah. Or
like,
the lying in.
Sure, anything subtly like different. Like, it's not the Lion's Head, it's Lion's Mane. And you're like, the players probably would catch on because you've set up all this before, where you've done it so many times, saying it's Lion's Head, it's Lion's Head, it's Lion's Head. Welcome back to the Lion's Head. Welcome to the Lion's Mane. They go in, they don't think about it the first time you say it. Maybe you forgot what the inn was called. But then maybe you have the barmaid be like, hey, welcome back to the Lion's Mane. We're so happy to see you, or something like that.
Yeah.
And then they're like, wait. And then you've probably got both your players and the characters going, wait.
Yeah.
Which I think is just a really interesting way you could employ the Mandela effect, false memories, things like that in a game to make it interesting.
Yeah, because then it's a question of, like, why is that different?
Yeah, so it's like, all right, well, we need to investigate this. Obviously, you could do it throughout the entire thing and just like not tell them anything at all, like not let them notice anything, just do it very subtly in the background, like. But I think it'd be great to drop subtle details.
Sure.
Again, it doesn't work with if you have a background for a player that they not have played through, because it's like, all right, well, you have all these memories from this, but changing a memory doesn't work as well unless you then kind of bring it up later, like, oh, you've been to this town in the past, or for instance, and you notice that the sign that you thought forever said the lion's head now says the lion's mane.
Right. Another interesting way that you might be able to implement that is if players pick up a book and you tell them the title of the book or what the book is, and then if they roll for insight or they want to, investigate it further, do an investigation, you just happen to mention that the book title is different. It's actually a different title, and maybe it doesn't have the same kind of content that you had.
Sure.
In our game, I think I picked up a book that was of gnomish spells, but maybe if I investigated it hard enough, it turns out that it's actually about dwarven cooking recipes, and I just looked the same.
Right.
Looked that way. And also, a way that you have your characters potentially be able to obfuscate things themselves if they are on the run. If they are being tracked by people trying to use some of, like, maybe illusionary magic or prestidigitation to slightly alter things without it being real noticeable, to try and throw people off. Because they do give you a lot of options for that, especially in D&D.
Sure. And I think it's even more interesting without utilizing the illusion magic, for instance, or enchantment magic, because then it's actually like, wait, something weird is going on here, and I don't know what, but now I want to find out.
Yeah, I can imagine characters that I play, like, actually, Dr. McFly would probably be one like this, where every time he's in London, purposefully saying something that is mispronounced or misremembered to try and get it to, like, be mimetic through the society. Like, his workshop was the danger zone.
Right.
But but the idea of him saying that his workshop is not called that.
It's called the danger area.
Yeah, exactly. It's called danger area. And so that purposefully people, when they start talking about it, if it gets any kind of notoriety, have trouble finding it on an actual map, because it's going to say danger zone on that map, so that it can protect him from people that might be trying to steal his ideas.
Well, that's another one too. Maps you could use as well. Perhaps you have a map and then you swap it out with one slightly different later.
Yeah.
Because that's another actual Mandela effect thing, is people apparently don't think New Zealand is where it's supposed to be on the map.
Yeah, it's I imagine that there are people that think that it's either above Australia or, like, below Australia.
Yeah, I don't remember the specifics, but yeah. Another one is also people don't realize or don't believe that the Pacific Ocean used to cover, or does cover rather, most of the entire hemisphere. Like,
Yeah.
97% of that side of the planet is ocean.
Oh, yeah. If you think that the Atlantic is big, you haven't seen the Pacific yet.
If you think the Atlantic Ocean is big, you haven't seen an ocean yet.
Yeah. It's like, it's the Crocodile Dundee looking at the Atlantic and then the Pacific. That's not an ocean. That's an ocean.
Yeah. So that's one too, and it's like, I don't know. Maybe you should look at a map. I assume it would be if they're looking at flat maps versus globes. They don't realize it, because obviously a flat map is not. We could do a whole episode on map projections if you wanted to sometime, which I don't think we should do.
No.
There's a great Vsauce episode about that from years ago. But yeah, different map projections will display land masses and things in different proportions than their actual size and scale.
Right.
Just because of how you have to do a round object on a flat surface.
Exactly. And so there are some very large land masses that don't necessarily look that big when it's
Like Greenland.
Yeah, Greenland usually never looks as big on a flat map as it does when you get a globe out.
No, it's big.
It's
And
big.
Africa's also huge.
Yeah, much bigger than the flat maps will make it look. Yeah. And also, if you really wanted to, if you flip the map around, it's still technically right, because...
What, like upside down?
Yeah, you just flip it
Yeah.
it upside down. Because,
Well, I mean, that's another great one, too, is the original blue marble image, of the Earth from space is inverted. It is
because
rotated
yeah,
because of the poles.
right.
The original picture was taken where our North Pole,
Mhm.
as it were, is on the bottom. And they rotated it because people associate north with up.
Got it. Yeah.
That's not necessarily a Mandela effect, but it is a thing.
It's an illusionary yeah. I mean, realistically, if you were in space...
Doesn't matter.
And you circled around... Yeah, if you circle around, you wouldn't...
If you're in
necessarily
space, your orientation is up is whatever way is above you.
Yeah, exactly. So at that point, the Earth can be in many, many different directions. These ideas of this is north, this is south is completely irrelevant.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I was thinking of this over the last night while we were discussing, like, figuring out what we're going to do for this episode. And I was like, this would be a good one. This would be an interesting one to just kind of, if you, excuse me, if you wanted to run a game where you're throwing strange things at the players or having a little bit of a mystery involved, perhaps, or just some weird coincidence or happenstance or things of that nature, this could be a really interesting plot point where you could just do something as a side plot, as it were, but have it actually have major implications on the story.
Right, absolutely. A good way to actually use investigation skills, I think, too, especially if you're doing something where you have investigators or inspectors, it can be a lot of fun because it's super subtle, but they're going to get super rewarded for the idea that they actually sussed out something so specific, so small. Right. And in similar fashion, can be a really good way for players or parties to use as a way of trying to confuse or to try and slough off tension that they otherwise don't want to have.
Right.
So, very good. Thank you for bringing that up. Thank you for explaining to me that there may or may not be a sun with sunglasses out there.
There may or may not be. Actually, it's probably the emoji at this point, but
I think that's what's probably throwing off a lot of people. Also,
emojis tend to.
Yeah, also raisins typically do not have sunglasses.
Yeah, raisins typically don't have anything.
You know what I'm starting...
They're
dead. And shriveled up and sad. They don't play saxophone either. But, you know what I'm starting to think to myself, though? I just thought about the Kool-Aid Man when I started thinking about sunglasses. And I'm like, wait, I don't think that the Kool-Aid Man had sunglasses either.
Some versions of him might, but I don't think he normally does.
No. I think it's just the real horror of the idea that a big carafe of Kool-Aid has eyes.
Well, also, the liquid inside of him is obviously his blood.
Yes, and it can spill out from the top very easily.
Yeah.
But hey, you know what? The Kool-Aid Man is an abomination of nature, so we just kind of... Yeah. Perfect. All right, so this has been episode 301 of Delve. It's been a wonderful thing. I think we've gotten over the deepest levels of conversation when it comes
almost like a tier list at this point of how deep we just went.
It's tier list. Yeah, it's an iceberg. We're doing the iceberg.
Episode 32, the Delve Iceberg.
Yes, the Delve iceberg. Never go down the Delve iceberg. You'll hit 11. If folks were interested in finding out more information about the content that we usually produce here, Alex, where could they go?
Well, the content we usually produce isn't actually Delve. We're sorry, we tricked you just a little bit. We wanted to have some fun on this slightly late April Fool's Day.
Was that a Mandela effect in itself? That we made people think Delve was still going on? And
it might be. It might also just be a callback. Parody? I don't know. I think we had fun either way.
We had
this
fun.
Delving Deeper.
Yes.
Extended edition.
The Oops All Delving episode.
Oops All Delving Deeper episode.
Yeah. Exactly. But anyway, where could they go for realsies?
For realsies, though, you can go to totalpebbledknockdown.com.
That's right. There are a number of pebbles on there. You know what I'm thinking to myself? I wonder how many pebbles there are, and if people would misremember how many pebbles are on the logo.
Goodness. That would actually be great.
And
we're just going to do an alternate version of the logo with the
with
number
just 2
of
more pebbles.
Slightly different.
Yeah, just 2 more pebbles on there. When you go over there, you can find all the episodes of this show, of Titanium Mine, all the other projects that we do, and feel free to click on the Patreon banner. Our Patreon folks are terrific, and you can find, if you become a patron, the full video episodes that release before any of the individual ones come out, and some of the bonus content that we have as well. You can also find us on all sorts of podcast apps. You can find us on Spotify and Google Play and Apple Podcasts. And
you use Apple Podcasts? Yes. I don't think people do anymore.
It used to be called iTunes.
Yeah.
And if you happen to be hearing us on Anchor and you have an Anchor account, you can also leave us voice clips on the individual episodes. And we might play them on the show if they're good and you're not trolling.
Not if they're good, if you're into that shit.
If you're into that shit, yeah, exactly. And you could also find us on many different kinds of social media. You can find me at Titanium.
You can find me at EXP Limited, and the show can be found over at Pebble Knockdown.
So if you have any questions or comments about the show, you can catch us over there, and you can also find us on our Discord server, where we have a lot of very long conversations we have to run through right now. We are backlogged for episode discussion right now. A lot of people talking about the last few. But if you want to jump in and talk about it as well, we are more than happy to have more people to the party. So
it's a party. You're invited.
Yeah, it's like a party in my mouth, and everybody's invited. I don't even know what that was from.
I don't want to know what that's from.
But now I'm maybe that was a Mandela effect. Maybe that wasn't even from something.
Maybe that was a terrible dream.
It was a terrible dream where there was a party in my mouth, and everybody was invited.
Maybe it's from that one Adventure Time episode.
Or it was from a chip commercial. I want to say it was a chip commercial.
Maybe that.
Yeah. Anyway, if you know, let us know. I honestly don't. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Total Delving Knockdown, and we will see you on the next one. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.